To replace the heating element on your machine, you want to make sure that the cover is removed first so you can access the metal. First thing you want to do is unscrew these 4 screws that are down here. You want to get yourself an Allen wrench that fits that first and start by removing one at a time. So disconnect them. The best way to do it is all evenly. You never really want to disconnect them all at one time. Just do one by one by one. First one's off. Second one is off. Third one is off here. Now, when you get to the 4th one, you got to be very, very careful because now this is going to detach itself from the actual metal. If you don't have anything to hold it while you're doing this thing will pop up really fast and it might hit you in the face. So be very, very careful when you remove this last one in. So when you disconnect it, keep one hand on the handle, and as you can see, it completely comes off just like that. Now, next thing we're going to do is remove the 4 screws out of the heating element. You want to get yourself either a screwdriver or a drill and disconnect each corner one at a time. This part, you don't really have to worry about anything because it's only a cover, so disconnect the first part, the second, third, and fourth. Now, before we proceed to the next part, you want to get yourself some work gloves or latex gloves, anything to cover your hands because there's a lot of fiberglass insulation material built inside and it does irritate the skin. It's not really good to breathe any of the stuff in, so when you open it, you'll see that it's all in there. Okay, with a nice pair of gloves, I'm just going to go ahead and safely remove all this fiberglass material out of the way. All right, so now inside you'll see a few wires that connect here. One of this is the ground, one of this is the heat sensor wire. Basically, this wire alone is what tells the computer gauge what temperature your machine is. As it heats up, it's going to go by this wire and it's going to tell it. So if you have an issue where your heating element is working but your temperature, let's say, jumps from 200 all the way to 400 immediately or just goes all over the place, or sometimes you might even get an error code for the temperature, that means that this wire will need to be replaced. And the way to do that is you're going to basically disconnect this here. And you would replace just this wire alone. So the best thing to do is you're going to cut all the cable ties, reroute it all the way to the back, and that's going to allow you to replace it. But since we're replacing the heating element, the most important things we're going to replace are here. So first thing we do is disconnect this, put it aside, and next thing is that you can notice that these are wrapped in wire wrap. So the easiest way to make sure you remove this is grab yourself any kind of razor blade, and the heating element for a brand new one will look like this. The connectors are positioned this way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run a blade right across here and I'm gonna stop and snip that off so that I can actually peel it off completely. So we will go ahead and start by cutting from here in a straight line, stopping right about there. And that's going to allow you to fully take this off. We're going to start with the other side as well. And be careful when you're using a blade. Always make sure that your hands are out of the way when you're cutting. Otherwise, you may cut your fingers, which is very, very bad. You'll notice that the power connectors are connected into here. Now, these are basically connected by small little nuts. And if they're tight, you can actually get yourself some pliers and disconnect them. And basically, you can slowly take off one nut at a time. Safely put it aside. There's 2 washers coming up next, as you can see. Just take them out. There you go. That's one connector out. We're going to do the other side as well. If it's tight on there, get yourself a plier. And sometimes it's going to be a little hard to get to, so needle nose pliers are best at this. And just slowly disconnect it, and eventually it'll fall out. When that falls out, you can just pull this out. And make sure you don't lose that. Now that the heating element is completely disconnected, go ahead and remove this, put it aside. And now we're going to install our new heating element. So scoot this over, and your heating element will always have these, but just in case you don't have these in a replacement or you lose them somehow, always keep the original ones from your other element. So you want to disconnect the nut, take out one washer, and we're going to go washer, connector, washer, and then nut. So after you put the washer, put one there, put another washer right there, and then you're going to put the nut right after that. So once you have that installed, just go ahead and screw it in. Okay, and we'll tighten it once we're done with both. So let's leave that there. Do the next side. So washer is already installed. Washer, connector, washer, and then the nut. Get as much as you can turned in with just your fingers. Once you got that installed, it's very important that you get yourself some needle nose pliers and you start tightening this, because you definitely don't want this to be loose. You know, if it gets loosened over time, the power will send the electricity to the wrong part and you might burn something here. So it's very important that you tighten this. Not over tighten it, but to the point where the wire is nice and locked in there firmly. Same thing with this side. So get this. There you go. Now that both connectors are tight, you can essentially wrap this around if you want back to the way it was and electrical tape it. You don't really have to. At the end of the day, it does have insulation material and nothing bad should ever really happen. But if you want to just go ahead and retape this one, you're more than welcome to. But most importantly, we're going to go ahead and install these wires back to normal. So you want to bring them together like this. Get that original screw that we had earlier and put them through just like that, and then connect it. So you want to make sure the ground is on top and the heat sensor wire is on the bottom. You can use a drill or a screwdriver. Just make sure it's nice and tight there. And now we're going to proceed with putting back the fiberglass insulation material. Make sure that when you're installing it that the 4 holes are going to be open so that you can install the cover back. And as long as each area is covered, you'll be okay. Just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and put back the cover on. So during this process, there's an opening. That's where all the wires will be going. And you're going to slowly close this back in. But in this process, make sure that everything does move out of the way for each corner, and definitely the 4 center holes here. So leave that there, leave that there. Just like that. And then we're gonna go ahead and start by screwing each screw back into place. And when you're doing this, don't tighten too much because sometimes you will have to shift it around just a bit. So just make sure everything is lining up when you're doing this. And then lastly, you would want to tighten all of them once together. So once you got that nice and installed, then we're going to start screwing in every part tightly. Then we're going to install these back into place, but first make sure you close it down. And if you want to be extra careful, have someone else hold on to this while you're installing at least one, because it does jump up really, really fast. So at least if you get 1 or 2 of them installed, don't have to worry from here. Just make sure they're hand tightened first, and then we're going to install it with the Allen key wrench. All right, so now, careful again. The last part, lock it down. And that's going to be it for the replacement of the heating element. If you want to just double check along the lines here, just make sure all the fiberglass is pushed in. Sometimes it'll be hanging off a little bit. If you can see it from here, it's perfectly fine. But if it's hanging out a little bit, get yourself a flathead, and you're going to want to go ahead and just push it all in just to make sure none of those are going to fall out or anything like that. Same for the front. If it does have it, just make sure you push it all in. And then left side as well. If there's a little bit of it sticking out on its own, you can go ahead and throw it away. It's perfectly fine, as long as the main part of it's there. That's all you have to worry about.